Dr. Sanjay Kumar Patel is an associate professor in the Department of Physiology, AIIMS Kalyani. He received his MBBS in 2009 from King George's Medical University, Lucknow. He obtained his MD in Physiology from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University, Agra. He rendered clinical services at AIIMS, New Delhi, and Paras Hospital, Gurugram, Haryana, as neurophysiology consultant before joining AIIMS Kalyani in 2019. His research area of interest include neurophysiology, intraoperative neurophysiological monitoring, medical education, nutrition, and metabolism. He is a life member of the Association of Physiologists and Pharmacologists of India and the Physiological Society of India. Please give a huge round of applause as we invite Dr. Sanjay Kumar Patel onto the dais.
Thank you for this overwhelming introduction. First of all, I'll express my sympathy to the audience that you have to listen to me after a stalwart like Dr. A.K. Mukhopadhyay. It's like watching Yuzvendra Chahal batting after Sachin Tendulkar's wicket. So still, I'll try to build a partnership with Yuzvendra Chahal will try to build a partnership with Dr. Sachin Tendulkar by passing the strike to him. So I'm extremely grateful to the organizers of this event to give me this opportunity to come here and share my knowledge. And also, I'm extremely grateful to get this opportunity to share stage with a big stalwart like Dr. A.K. Mukhopadhyay. He is one of my inspiration. Personally, I've never met him, but I've heard a lot about him. I'm a student of AIIMS Delhi. I have done my SRC senior residentship from AIIMS Delhi. There also I was always hearing about him. After that also, he is one of the inspiration of many physiologists, many pathologists, many research scholars in our country. So I owe you, sir. So before starting my presentation, I will ask few questions to the audience. Do you frequently complain of forgetting things, studies, people, places, events? Is forgetting something good or bad? Should we be able to remember everything? The first question is a frequent complaint of every parent, particularly Indian parents. We as a doctor face this situation many times. They come to us and say, उसको हमारे बच्चे को पढ़ाई में कुछ याद नहीं रह रहा है, कुछ ऐसी दवाई दीजिए कि उसको याद आ जाए सब कुछ, स्मरण शक्ति उसका बढ़ जाए, है ना? Even I was born in a village in Sundargarh district of Odisha. My father is a primary school teacher come farmer. So I have this rural background of upbringing. They took me to one of the doctor in very childhood. I was third or fourth year of my age. That time, my father complained कि ये इसको कुछ याद नहीं रह रहा है. So डॉक्टर ने बोला कि आपको कैसे पता हो, तब से 3-4 साल का है, इसको कैसे, तो अभी तो इसका पूरा लाइफ पढ़ा है. तो my father said कि मैं इसको जो भी पढ़ाता हूँ या क्वेश्चन पूछता हूँ, आंसर बताता हूँ, नेक्स्ट दिन फिर पूछता हूँ, ये भूल जाता है. तो डॉक्टर सेड कि ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, स्मरण शक्ति बढ़ाने या घटाने जैसा कोई चीज नहीं होती है. आप इसको नॉर्मल जैसे अपब्रिंगिंग करते हो वैसे ही करो, एंड लेटर यू विल फाइंड कि ही विल बी एक्सीलेंट इन सम ऑफ द फील्ड्स. सारे बच्चे हर सब्जेक्ट में हर टाइप ऑफ लर्निंग में एक्सपर्ट नहीं होते. एंड लेटर ही डिस्कवर्ड दैट आई वाज वेरी मच इंटरेस्टेड in logical thinking. I was very good at problem solving, and hence my mathematics background was very, very strong. On the contrary, जैसे बच्चे होते हैं ना रट के याद कर लेते हैं, वो मुझसे नहीं होता कभी भी. So I was weak in biology. Ironically, I am now a doctor. but I was weak in biology. I was good in mathematics and problem solving. And I topped in physics all India PMT in my PMT entrance. So, but biology, I will not say my score. It was very, very less. So due to physics, I got into PMT basically. So, but still the complaint remained the same. We all, starting from child to adolescent to adult, we all complain this. We have frequent complaints of forgetting things. कल शाम को ही मेरी एक बेटी के दोस्त का बर्थडे था और मैं सुबह से एक गिफ्ट पूरा पैक करके रैप करके रख दिया रूम पे कि शाम को इसको लेके जाएंगे और शाम को मैं वाइफ और बेटी पूरा रेडी होके गए बर्थडे के स्पॉट पर वहां जाके पहुंचे तो याद आया कि हमने जो गिफ्ट हो तो लाई ही नहीं देन अगेन आई केम बैक टू माय क्वार्टर एंड आई टुक इट बैक सो वी फॉरगेट थिंग्स इट इज एज नॉर्मल एज एनी अदर थिंग any other like eating, sleeping, reading, talking, it's as normal as that. So but still we complain, right? Like I am very good at remembering places and roads, maps, but very poor at identifying people. For identifying face of a person, I have to meet him thrice or 4 times at least. After that only I will remember his face. But place or roads, I will go once and I even after 10 years, I will be able to reach that spot again. So it is not that someone is forgetting something that means, or not remembering something that means it's a problem or it's a difficulty. He or she might be good at remembering some other things or doing or performing some other things. Second question is forgetting something good or bad? We often say forgetting is bad, but imagine if you are able to remember everything from your childhood till now, everything, every day, every moment, everything you speak, everything you see, everything you hear, everything you are remembering now. Imagine that situation. Will it be normal? You will go crazy. Your mind, whatever the capacity of our brain, still we will not be able to handle that situation if we are remembering everything, every person we see on the whole life. It's a very scary situation. So forgetting is a boon actually. It's not a curse. Forgetting is a boon so that we can remember or build up our memory of some special things. Those are required for our learning or for our living, for our life. We forget, we again try to remember, we forget, we again try to remember. This keeps on, this is a cycle. Forgetting and memory is a cycle, and it keeps on happening throughout the life so that our learning continues. Learning is a continuous process like life. So learning is continuous and forgetting is also continuous. So forgetfulness to learning or to memory is just like darkness to light. The importance of light is because of darkness. Had there been no darkness, nobody would appreciate light. जून की गर्मी नहीं होगी तो जुलाई की बरसात की ठंडक हमको महसूस नहीं होगी, है ना? वो गर्मी में तपते हैं तभी हमको बरसात अच्छी लगती है. So keeping these things in mind, I'll start my presentation. Physiology of memory before we forget. This picture I put because this building is OPD building of the newly built AIIMS Kalyani. This was taken by a nursing officer on a beautiful evening after a heavy rain. And this shows the image of this building. So this is just like our factual life, and this is our memory in our brain of our factual life. Our experience, our learning, our life is this building, and whatever in our brain, inside our brain, inside our mind is this image. We have to retain this image. We have to utilize this image time and again to improve the quality of our life, to improve the quality of learning. So whenever we talk about memory, you have been listening to so many experts as stalwarts in last 5 days. So many talks about memory. Still, it's a mystery. We all say memory is a mystery. Okay, unsolving the mystery of memory is our theme of this school. And after this event, also memory will still be a mystery. That is the beauty of memory. So, what is a memory? The word memory has been used or abused thoroughly by in all of the fields, like starting from your computer, mobile. For the first thing you will think about when you go to purchase a mobile is iska memory kitna hai. आज के टाइम में we all have so many photos, videos, events to capture in that mobile. So we asked to the shopkeeper, इसका memory कितना है, इसमें कितना memory का chip पड़ सकता है. If you go to purchase a mattress, आजकल वो आता है memory mattress का भी memory होता है ना. So rather the word memory, उसका हिंदी में हम अगर वो कर दें तो याद आना, मतलब याददाश्त, उसको तो बॉलीवुड ने पूरा एक्सप्लोर कर दिया है बुरी तरह से. तुम मुझे भूल जाओ, वो मैं होने नहीं दूंगा, मैं तुम्हें भूल जाऊं, वो हो नहीं सकता, याद आ रहा है, बहुत याद से कितने गाने हैं, कितने सॉन्ग्स, कितने डायलॉग्स हैं, जस्ट ट्राई टू रिमेम्बर. So the memory has been used thoroughly by literatures, by actors, the scientists, physicists, technologists. But actually, what is memory? When we talk about our own memory, brain memory, it is medical memory. So it has a definition. Sir has explained it in very detail. I'll just touch it superficially. Memory is defined as retention of learned information and experiences. The stored information should be retrieved, utilized at any time in life whenever needed. So it is a retention of learned information. Then what is learning? Learning is defined as a acquirement of the information or knowledge by experience that results in alteration of behavior. There is a different, almost close terms, learning and memory, but there's a difference. So we all have seen this in our, experienced in this our school. Behave yourself. We have memorized the whole book, but learned nothing. So we can memorize certain thing without memory or without learning. So memory and learning are not always together. Okay, it's not that it is in memory, that means we have learned. Some of the persons, particularly we have seen in our villages, the pujaris who come for various pujas to our house, they would have remembered all the slokas and mantras. But when we as a child were asking about the meanings, they were unable to tell. So memorizing is a thing, and to learning those things is another thing. So stages of memory, there are 4 stages of memory. Registration of memory, this includes perception and attention, as sir thoroughly explained the perception. Then it's integration and retention, recognition and recall, and finally the reutilization. Classification of memory, very quickly I will go through. Sir has already discussed these things. Explicit, or it's called declarative memory, implicit or non-declarative memory. Explicit memory, like semantic memory, the factual memory, or episodic memory, some events. It may be short term, long term. And in implicit memory, there are priming, procedural memory, associative learning, which has classical and operant conditioning as part, non-associated learning like habituation and sensitization. So this is the physiology of memory. We will try to just touch it upon. So first, the declarative memory. Answer to these 4 questions: what, where, when, why. This comes under declarative memory. What, where, when, and why. How comes in non-declarative memory. So primarily it is dependent on hippocampus and other parts of medial temporal lobe. Episodic memory is for the events like your marriage, your anniversaries, your meeting someone, any important event in your life. Those are in episodic memory. Semantic memory is factual memory. It's a memory of object, fact. You have a car, you have a house, you have an address. Those things are semantic memory. Those will be in your memory always. And concepts, whatever concepts you have developed in your studies, as well as in your life, as well as words and their meanings. From childhood, we have been learned so many words. We have developed our vocabularies. We know those words. We know their meanings. They are in our memory. So those are semantic memory. Short-term memory is a part of this declarative memory or explicit memory. It lasts for seconds to hours. Short-term memory. It may not be substantiate in our brain for a long period, during which the processing of this short-term memory is in hippocampus. We call working memory. Like I'm standing here, I'm holding this pointer, I'm talking to you. This is my working memory. The things which I need to perform all this task. I have to use this microphone. Typical example is OTP. One OTP comes, you remember for a few seconds, you use that and then you forget. That is working memory. It's a form of short-term memory that makes information available for a very brief period. Can be transferred into long-term memory by repeated training, consolidation. It's called consolidation. If that working memory, that small memory stimulus is given repeatedly, like same OTP you will be using for 10 times, 20 times, then you will memorize those numbers. Like your phone numbers you have memorized. Initially it would have been a working memory, but वो धीरे-धीरे करके बार-बार use करके that came into long-term memory. Long-term memory stores information for years together and sometimes for life. Sir was telling about the earliest age that we can remember events. I am born in 1983. I remember 1987. And how do I remember? We were writing on the notebooks the dates and years. Before 87, I'm not remember. I don't remember writing 86 ever. 87 I remember. And after that, 88, 89, every year I remember. And there are few events. Events we might not be able to associate with our age. But years I'm able to recall. So I can guess that, I can say that at 4 years of age, from I can remember the things from 4 years of age. So semantic memory or factual memory, one is episodic memory, one is semantic memory. Factual memory is like object, facts, concepts. Example is a flute. It's a word of 5 alphabets. It has visual component, it has auditory component, and it has a somatosensory component. Visual component, if you have seen a flute, you will be remembering it properly. It's a cylindrical substance with many holes in it. Auditory memory, if you have heard a sound of flute, you will be able to remember this even better. And somatosensory, if you have touched it, the consistency, the appearance, then it would the memory will be even better. So these are the components of any memory. It depends on our stimulus of that memory that comes to our brain, like visual, auditory, and somatosensory. Declarative or explicit memory can be divided into semantic, or that is factual memory, or episodic. Semantic memory, generally, the responsible part of our brain are lateral and anterior temporal cortex, prefrontal cortex. Episodic memory, hippocampus, are told already, medial temporal lobe and the neocortex. Patient H, I want to, in this regard, I want to talk about patient HM. Sir was telling in one of the question. HM was a patient who suffered from bilateral temporal lobe seizures that began following a bicycle accident at the age of 9. His case has been studied by many scientists and has led to a greater understanding of the link between temporal lobe and declarative memory. We were just a few minutes before we were discussing about one case or is a plethora of the cases as statistics. Sometimes one case is so important to study, and typical example is patient HM. There are several patients like this in neurophysiology, if you come across. Those contribution of those patients to understanding of the neurophysiological concept is tremendous. Generally, it is very difficult to study human brain. Very, very difficult. I'll talk about the challenges, but now we'll focus on the patient HM. So his case has been studied by many scientists, and this has led to a greater understanding of the link between temporal lobe and declarative memory. HM has had partial seizure for many years, and then several tonic-clonic seizure by age of 16. In 1953, at the age of 27, HM underwent bilateral surgical removal of amygdala, large portion of the hippocampal formation, and portion of association area of the temporal cortex. So almost similar to the case which we saw in the Lancet paper. HM's seizures were better controlled after the surgery, but removal of temporal lobes led to devastating memory deficit. He maintained long-term memory for events that occurred prior to surgery, but he suffered from anterograde amnesia. So I talk about anterograde amnesia, the loss of memory for a very short period. His short-term memory was intact, but he could not commit new events to long-term memory. Anterograde is basically this, and you will not be able to convert any immediate memory to long-term memory. He had normally procedural memory, and he could learn new puzzles and motor tasks. So not all of his memory is gone. Some of the parts or some of the components of the memory is disturbed, while others are intact. His case was first to bring attention to the critical role of temporal lobe in formation of long-term declarative memories, and to implicate this region in conversion of short-term to long-term memories. Later work showed that the hippocampus is the primary structure with the temporal lobe involved in this conversion. So that is the contribution of patient HM. It is a very, very famous case. Almost all the neurophysiologists know this. Because HM retained memories from before surgery, his case also shows that the hippocampus is not involved in storage of declarative memory. So from just one case, we concluded many things in the formation of memory. Finally, HM died in 2008, and only at that time was his identity released. His full name was Henry Gustav Molaison. His photo is also now published in Google. You can find him. He is famous as patient HM. His immense contribution to the development of the concept of memory. So now we'll talk about the implicit memory. We have seen the explicit memory, that is declarative memory. Implicit memory is also called reflexive or non-declarative memory. These are usually skills, habits, priming and conditioned reflexes that we learn, that we develop. Those memories are developed in our brain, in our mind, but we may not require the stimulus or our consciousness to perform those or use those memory. Explicit memory is initially required to develop implicit memory, obviously. And for example, learning to ride a bicycle. During learning, our explicit memory will be very, very useful. But after you learned it, there is no very least role of explicit memory. Now implicit memory will take over. When to apply brakes, your rhythm of pedaling a bicycle, and even for a motorbike, we apply clutch, we apply gears, brakes, all are in sync while riding a bicycle. We never think anything, think, oh, now I will put the brake, or now I'll change the gear, or now I'll put the accelerator, and we hardly have any time, or we hardly have that consciousness to do all those things. But those are in our reflexive learning. So these are the examples of implicit learning or non-declarative learning. So I will request the audience to read these words: Gittleman syndrome, good pasture syndrome, Pearson syndrome, and Penrose syndrome. After this, I will ask the audience to fill this blank. First one is GIT, and then GOO, then Goldman, good pasture, I think. PEA, Pearson. DOW, Down syndrome, very good. PEN, Penrose. GIL, Gilbert. So few of those syndromes came in the previous slide, okay, that worked in our memory. And these few words or few letters, the initial few letters used as priming. Whereas Down and Gilbert were not there in the previous slide, still people able to recall those names because of their familiarity. They are more famous. So this is the importance of priming. Priming is the facilitation of the recognition of words or objects by prior exposure to them, and is dependent on the neocortex. This is the function of the neocortex. An example of priming is improved recall of a word when presented with few of the first alphabets. So implicit memory has these components. Procedural memory, we have talked about. It includes skills and habits, which one acquired become unconscious and automatic, like learning bicycle. Non-associative learning and then associative learning. Non-associative learnings, the organism learns about single stimulus. Examples are habituation and sensitization. We'll see in bit detail. Associative learnings, the organism learns about the relation of one stimulus with other. And typical example is conditioned response, that we call associative learning. So there's a summary till now that we have gone through. Declarative or explanative memory, semantic or episodic. Semantic, the responsible part of the brain are lateral and anterior temporal cortex, prefrontal cortex. For episodic memory, we have hippocampus, middle temporal lobe, and neocortex. For non-declarative, the procedural memory, the striatum, cerebellum, have told the role of cerebellum. Striatum, cerebellum, motor cortex. Priming and perceptual memory, the neocortex is responsible. In associative learning, that is classical conditioning, it is the amygdala and the cerebellum. And non-associative learning, habituation and sensitization, it is the reflex pathways. So a neural basis of memory, there are three generally considered or widely accepted mechanisms of the memory as strength of synaptic connections. We have millions of synapses in our brain or in our body. So their strengths is the function of, or you can say it is the strength is related to the memory, the mechanism of memory. Second, messenger system contribute to change in the neural circuitry required for learning and memory. And then there's alteration in cellular membrane channels. Sir was talking about that in detail. These three are the common mechanism of, or the neural basis of the memory development. We'll talk about conditioned reflex. Any physiologist talking about memory is incomplete without discussing this classical conditioning. Reflex response to a stimulus that hardly elicit any response in the past, but presently the response to the stimulus is acquired by pairing the stimulus with another stimulus. So two stimulus are paired and result will be similar. That normally produces the response. So it's two type, classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Two component, it has emotional response and motor response. Emotional response is taken care by the amygdala and motor response by the cerebellum. So example, famous example, there's a landmark example of Ian Pablo experiment of dog. I think all of you are acquainted with this. So unconditioned stimulus will lead to unconditioned response. Food will lead to salivation. Now it is unconditioned. Now we will condition sound with the food. So conditioned stimulus will lead to will be associated with unconditioned stimulus, that is food. And finally, that conditioned stimulus sound will lead to conditioned response called as salivation. So what he did is, before conditioning, he was offering food to the dog. As a result, there was salivation. And then he associated ringing. Before association, there is a ringing of bell that led to no salivation. Then he associated ringing of bell with the provision of food, and both response as a response there was salivation in food. Finally, we saw just ringing of bell will lead to salivation even without food. So that is the conditioning, that is the association between associated learning between the stimulus, provision of stimulus of sound and the food. So the second type of conditioning is operant conditioning. This is the process by learning by which the likelihood of a specific behavior, it is either increased or it is increased by negative or positive reinforcement. If we see here, there's a dispenser tube and pellets are being given. So and there is this shock generator, and here is one speaker sound. So one positive positive stimulator we gave was given to the animal, and the food pellet was given. Sometimes the negative reinforcement was there, shock, and there was no food. So with this repeated exposure to positive and negative reinforcement, a behavior is being developed in the mice. This is the example of operant conditioning. So coming back to the mechanism of learning and memory, there are these three mechanisms we generally associate with the learning and memory. Molecular mechanism, we have already discussed the synaptic connections, neurotransmitter secretion, and formation of intracellular second messenger. Protein synthesis and gene activations are also discussed about. Habituation and sensitization, due to change in neurotransmitter release at the synapse, at the sensory neuron terminal due to alteration in intracellular calcium. Condition reflex we just saw. So habituation is a neutral stimulus is repeated many times. The first, whenever it is applied first, for the first time, it will lead to a mild response because of the novelty of the stimulus. However, the less electrical response will be repeated time and again with the same stimulus if it is repeated. So finally, what will happen if we keep on giving the same stimulus repeatedly? Finally, we will see there is a decrease in the response. This is called habituation. The synapses are habituated to that particular stimulus. Okay, so this is due to the in time frame there is the decrease in the intracellular calcium due to gradual inactivation of calcium channel in the synapse. And thus habituation occurs. Sensitization is the opposite of that. Initially, the response is mild, but when it has been associated with some noxious stimulus, and with the repeated stimulus, the response will get stronger and stronger. Example is the calcium-mediated change in the adenyl cyclase that leads to greater production of cyclic AMP in due course of time. Long-term potentiation is, sir was also talking about that. Long-term potentiation is the most accepted, you can say, concept, or it's not. It is not yet a theory. It's still a concept. So long-term potentiation involves protein synthesis and growth of presynaptic and postsynaptic neurons and their connections to build up the memory. It is a rapidly developing, persistent enhancement of the postsynaptic potential to the stimulation after a brief period of rapidly repeated stimulation. We'll see in the diagram, it will be better useful, better connected. By repeatedly giving the same signal, what we do is we potentiate the response. And it is long term. The stimulus has to be applied for a long term. Finally, I'll summarize the role of various area of the brain is in the mechanism of memory. Brain areas for integration of various form of memory: explicit or declarative memory, facts and events, the medial temporal lobe; short-term memory, hippocampus; working memory, prefrontal cortex; long-term memory, various parts of the neocortex. Implicit or non-declarative memory, priming is the function of neocortex; procedural memory, striatum; associated learning, emotional amygdala; motor response, cerebellum; non-associative learning is all the reflex pathways. So to develop this understanding, there is a vast history of tremendous work done by the scientists. So we were talking about the challenges in studying the brain. Brain is still one of the unexplored organ of our body. There are three fields in modern day science that are still unexplored, or they're explored to the least of their proportion. That is, one is the space. We all know because of our limitation of speed. Second is the core of Earth or the base of the ocean. It has not been explored because of certain limitations, like we cannot go to the very depth of the ocean due to the tremendous pressure. We cannot go to the core of the temperature, core of the Earth due to the temperature. So what is the limitation that limits us in the study of brain? Ethics. Ethical concern is the limitation. We cannot cut upon any brain and just study it. Brain is the as of the study till now in the medical science, brain is the most vital organ in our body. So we cannot kill any person and study the brain. Scientists are there who had done brain studies on brain on the cadavers, dead bodies, defying the orders of the church. They went to the mortuaries, they excavated, and this has been also there has been studies on dead bodies of patients of pandemics. Larger understanding of our brain physiology has been from the animal studies only till now. Human brain study is only functional study we can give. We cannot give strong currents, we cannot give strong stimulus to our brain, all of due to ethical concerns. Only thing we can study is on the animals, ignoring the ethics and morality. But the irony is we cannot extrapolate the result of the animal studies 100% to perfection to the human brain, because they both are different. Human brain as compared to any other animal brains are completely different. Although there are few similarities, but still we have the most developed brain in whole ecosystem. So that makes us restricted in understanding the whole function or whole function of or physiology of the brain. And that is the reason, even if one case study like HM or one case study like Sir reported in the Lancet journal, Sir quoted in the Lancet journal, is widely published, widely accepted, and widely discussed through. If you are studying any, if you this is for the upcoming researchers in neurophysiology. If you are going to study anything in brain, the sample size has to be very, very minimal. Unlike other studies where you have to have a sample size of 500, 1000, the community-based studies. Whereas in brain or neurophysiology study, 1, 2, 3, even 5 or 6 animal study you are doing, the sample size is good enough. That is the reason. of its the difficulty in its study. If we go across the various studies in the past scientists, how the mechanism of sleep was discovered, how the mechanism of EEG waves were discovered. They're very, very interesting. Those scientists were struggling a lot. They were stopped by churches, stopped by the associations, anything, but they persisted on their perseverance, and they tried to prove something, and as a result we have some of the findings in our brain. But still, I must say, whatever findings we have in neurophysiology is just the tip of the iceberg. We have many more things to explore in neurophysiology. Adding to that, I want to just add the recent concept of memory that has developed in last few years, last 4 or 5 years, is the role of sleep. Sleep has been proved and is the current burning topic in neurophysiology, that sleep has been proved beneficial for improving memory. The role of sleep in developing memory, the conversion of short-term memory to long-term memory, is being studied right now extensively in last 4 to 5 years. This I came to know just after listening to one of my mentor, Dr. Tirupati Deep Singh. He is a very renowned sleep physiologist of India. He published a chain of researchers, and he presented a chain of researchers in last 5 years, and he showed that the recent development is that the sleep has an immense role, good sleep has immense role in development of memory. So with that, I want to end my presentation. If any question, I'll try to explain.
Thank you, sir, for this engaging presentation. Do we have any questions from the audience for sir?
Thank you, Doctor, for your good presentation. Again, you ended with that sleep. It is observed, it is noticed that most of us are not getting the deep sleep. What is the suggestions for getting deep sleep for the people? Why it is not getting such kind of deep sleep nowadays?
There are many reasons that most of us are not getting good sleep. One of the reason is there is decrease in the physical activity in all of us. We all have changed to that sedentary lifestyle by the development of technology and all artificial. Now the recent development is artificial intelligence. Just we type something in ChatGPT and whole thing comes upon. So if we see the change in lifestyle in last 20 years, we'll get the answer. Like in last 20 years, the world has changed in a very rapid pace. The physical activity has been decreased. Our dietary pattern has changed. Whole of our lifestyle has changed. So that is one of the reasons. Although there are many reasons, stress and metabolism, but our lifestyle, the lack of physical activity is one of the things that has decreased the quality of sleep in us. And I was just going through a few papers in last few days about the quality of sleep. One of the things that we are adding to the nature is now light pollution. Previously, there was sound pollution, earth pollution, water, air pollution. We added noise pollution. Now the pollution is light pollution. If you see any campus, particularly we see in our AIMS campus, so many lights are there and they are in the whole night. We'll not able to see the clear sky. We'll not able to see the stars even if there are no clouds. That is due to light pollution. So how will we sleep when we are exposed to so much of light? Despite of making our bedroom dark, the external environment is full of lights. If you go to a village, I have experienced this during the vacation. If you go to a village, there is minimal lights. You will be able to have a good sleep. Just 2 to 3 days. Sun exposure is needed in the daytime. Night is for sleep. but we have changed it. Whole night is the whole you know, all the street lights, all the lights are on throughout the night. So that has been again detrimental for our sleep quality.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the audience? No? Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Sure.
Dr. Shah, it is a very good presentation.
Thank you.
You
Thank
have
you.
bats like Sachin Tendulkar. Yeah. So very good presentation, excellent presentation. And you have discussed almost all aspects of physiology.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.